The way in which parental depression would affect families is that it would, the bonds tying the family members would be strained. It was not an easy situation for people to want to go and ask for the necessary help and support that they need, even to admit saying that, hey, my wife or I as a mom, I'm going through depression. It is seen saying that I am not capable of taking care of my child. I am incapable of managing this life's milestone, so the family and friends think that they could be interfering. At one point of time, it was different where people would come in with freshly cooked food and fruits and other things to support the child. Now there could be baby showers where you're getting a lot of gifts, but then it's tata bye bye. Then it's people going back to their lives. You don't have the necessary, even your neighbors, if there is a new child in the house, I think in apartment complexes, I've heard of people going to other neighbors saying that it could get noisy here. Just like if you have a dog with you who could be a bit noisy and you apologize for that.
Hello and welcome. Today we are lucky to have Asha Puthran as our guest here at Family Man Entrepreneurs. She is such an interesting woman with a very, very interesting background and does amazing work with women with perinatal depression. So we will go into that topic and we'll hear from this perinatal depression alleviation coach and how she helps women and how this is a big benefit for men to know about perinatal
Absolutely.
depression and how they can help support the partner. So here we go. Hello, Asha. How are you?
Hi, Mark. Doing great. And hello to everybody who's listening.
Mhm. Good, good, good. Welcome to the podcast. Now, to start, as my audience has a lot of has a lot of men, can you talk a bit about perinatal depression and what it is, and
Sure.
how many women suffer from it, before we dive deeper into it?
Sounds good. So, diving right into the topic of perinatal depression, depression is a feeling of intense overwhelm, sadness, anxiety that lasts for a very long time and that is not in the control of the person who's experiencing depression. And perinatal depression is one of many types of depression faced by a mother or even a father around the time of the birth of their child. It is said 1 in 5 women in the modern world, or 1 in 10 women, or 1 in 15 men face perinatal depression. This is because around the time that a woman gives birth, her body goes through a lot of hormonal changes as well as physical changes. Either natural birth or a cesarean section birth means that her body is at its weakest. She has just done the great task of having given birth to her child, but in the 21st century, she may or may not have the support that is necessary to bring up that child in a fashion that does not set her back quite a bit. She may not have that support, and she is going through so many changes in her body and her mind, and that child is so much demanding of her at that very time that she could go through depression that could last from the time that she's pregnant till even a year or longer after she has given birth. That is depression. Obviously, the father who is by her side trying to support her also doesn't have a clue, especially if it's their first child. Because we don't necessarily train our mothers, young mothers and fathers, what you're supposed to do once you have the child. Everybody asks the question, when are you going to have the child? As soon as you've gotten married, or even the time of 30, 35 hits your biological clock. When are you going to have the child? But it would be great if they said, hey, if you had a child, I would come down and babysit for a little while. Have you ever heard that? So,
Mhm.
there you go, Mark.
Perfect. Thank you for that very beautiful description. So, um, how would perinatal depression be different from any other type of depression?
Clinically, it is said there are about 7, 8, even 9 different types of depression. They are major depressive disorders. There are subdepressive disorders. situational depressive disorders, there's bipolar disorder, and all of these come with different set of symptoms. All of them have sadness, guilt, overwhelm, shame, of sadness which continue beyond the control of the person experiencing this depression. Perinatal depression is specialized or characterized in the nature that it is surrounding the prenatal, that is pregnancy time, and postpartum, or right after the birth of the child. So it is characterized around that time, and it is centered around both the mother and the child and the father. That is how the depression varies, and it is well possible that the mother need not continue to be depressed for the rest of her life, while some of the other depressive disorders means that she could, if she's had depression in the past, a mother is more prone to perinatal depression, but if that is not the case, her recovery could be quicker through certain strategies, methods, practices, even medication. A mother can get over, a father can get over perinatal depression and go back to their lives quicker. And most likely they would not face this for the rest of their lives. Versus other depressive conditions could go on for a very long time, and it would mean that you would be taking your medication or trying to do work around your depressive state for a very long time indeed. So, perinatal period is characterized around the giving birth time versus the other situations. Like I said, situational disorder, right? For example, I lost my job. Or it could be there is a type of depression that women face around the time they go through their menstrual period. Or I've had cancer in my life. Any of these times, I could face depression. And that is how perinatal depression is different from the other types of depression.
Okay, thank you very much for that answer. I, from my point of view, because I'm not in that world, it's a topic that I don't come across very often. Is this something that is often discussed among women? Is this something that should be discussed more? And if it's not that if it's not discussed that often, why do you think that is?
That's a great question, Mark. I don't believe it is discussed as much as it should be for two reasons. One is depression in general has a stigma around it. It's all right for any human being to say that I'm going through a physical symptom. I have a cough, I have a cold, I have cancer, I have a kidney disease, I've got diabetes. And that's okay. Everybody will say, "Oh, I'm sorry that you have to deal with this for the rest of your life." And they will feel that pity, that empathy, that sympathy. But if it is a mental disorder, then there is a stigma associated with it, that you are lesser of a human being for having this, and that you're not mentally capable to handle a life situation and you broke down. That is the feeling that most moms go through, and they don't even admit that they're going through depression. That's one case. And on the other hand, there's baby blues and other symptoms which they feel is temporary, and the people around them feel, hey, it's a hormonal issue. Just like you sort of think that the menstrual cramps and other issues that women face are temporary and that goes away, this will also go away as soon as a month or two as soon as you've given birth. The persistent nature of perinatal depression is something that people don't realize. Oh, it's actually a medical condition, it's a serious disorder, it needs help, it needs therapy, I need to talk to people, I need to get a strategy around it, I need to build a support system around it. People are unaware of this. So, both through this stigma where people don't want to admit that they're actually so seriously in need of help, as well as the lack of awareness that these are the symptoms that mean that I am in depression and I need to get help. A combination of that is why most people are not aware of perinatal depression and it's not spoken about so openly. It should be.
Oh, absolutely. And you mentioned baby blues and postnatal depression being, is it a bit similar, but postnatal depression would be longer? You said that that's one of the
Right.
characteristics.
That's right.
Is that
Baby
correct?
blues are
Yeah.
pretty
Okay.
much like, you're absolutely right. Baby blues are just something like a woman goes through her menstrual cramps. The hormones play a big game here. The oxytocin, the estrogen, the progesterone, all these hormones that are within a woman's body controlling how she reacts to situations. It is not of a temporary nature like it is with baby blues. Baby blues is something that translates to a woman feeling, a mother feeling sad, overwhelmed, guilty that she is not feeling happy that she's just given birth to a child, shame that she's not able to cope with the needs of being a new mom for a short period of time. That goes away within 15 days, a month, a couple of months. But perinatal depression is something that does not, and that is not something that the woman can even control. The mom is just overwhelmed with how things are, and she's in a consistent state of overwhelm, of sadness. All the feelings that I said with baby blues is just heightened to a state, and in a state where it is out of her hand. Baby blues comes and goes, and there are wonderful moms who go through this phase of motherhood happily, joyously, and much power to them. But a lot of us struggle, especially in this 21st century world, where we don't have the necessary support, most likely don't have the necessary support. The people who have the support go through this a little more easily. And that's the difference between baby blues and perinatal depression, which is a lot more consistent in
Yes.
nature. And yeah, out of the mom's hand, where she can say, I'll be out of it in 15 days and I'll be able to get back to work, but she has to get back to work.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you for clarifying that. And when it comes to perinatal depression now compared to, let's say, 50 years ago, do you think, or do you know if there's any difference? Is it worse now? Has it become a bit better? What do you think?
I would say it's far worse now. There are now people on the planet, I think more than there ever have been before. And we are also in a state when a lot of mothers are giving birth to children in their mid 30s, late 30s, than it was in an earlier situation where most women were giving birth in their 20s. So, what that translates to is this: our bodies pretty much decline post the 30s. If I was to give in my 20s, I'm fitter both physically, well, perhaps not mentally. As you are older, you would know that you have different responsibilities and what to expect and what not to. But your bodily conditions would say that I think it would have been easier on a younger woman than what I have to, especially with a second or a third child as well. Because you're having to run after your young one, you're looking after your newborn, and then within 3 months to 6 months, depending on what part of the world you are, you're going back to work.
Yeah.
Before, there was also a lot of support system from your neighbors, from your relatives, from your friends and family who used to gather around the mom to give her the necessary support around that time. That is still a culture in some parts of the world, in Asia, in different parts of Europe. If you compare the Western world of nuclear family to the parts of the world where larger groups of families are together, the count is much lesser there than in the Western world of women facing perinatal depression. The
Hmm.
stats say the International Labour Organization says about 47% of the workforce are women, and out of that, 1 to 5 in the Western world, 1 to 7 or 10 in the other countries where there's greater support. That is the kind of statistics. 1 in 5 women face perinatal depression.
Wow.
1 in 15 men also face perinatal depression, because let me be straight, they haven't a clue what's happening. They didn't expect this to hit them the way
Hmm.
it does. And they can't
Hmm.
understand why their happy go lucky, confident partner is suddenly a wreck, a ball of guilt, shame,
Hmm.
sadness. What happened to that confident lioness of a woman that I had now that she's become a mom to a little baby? Whatever happened to her? And how do you take care of a child with as less sleep as we get when there's a newborn in the house? There's not enough sleep, there's not no good food to nourish your body, and there's piled up clothes and dirty laundry to be done every single day. It's just overwhelming. I don't think, and I know personally, being from an Asian culture, When we give birth, I faced perinatal depression. However, I did have necessary support around me for a short period of time. Either that time was not enough to recover from it. Just imagine for somebody who had no support at all right from the beginning. You just bring the baby back home, it's just the mom and the dad. And that's the situation where it's much more common now than it was before. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for answering that. So, yeah, talk about you included the dad already, saying he will find it a bit surprising. I presume, especially the first time, the first child. Can you speak about how the family is affected with perinatal depression? Like in the typical small family units you see in the West, like a typical, because you live in Australia, right?
I do in
Yeah.
Melbourne.
So, okay. And there's, I presume, a lot of my guess, very typical small mom, dad, children family without that
Majority.
big, yeah, without that big support that you would have in some Asian countries. How would perinatal depression affect the family?
The way in which perinatal depression would affect families is that it would, the bonds tying the family members would be strained. It was not an easy situation for people to want to go and ask for the necessary help and support that they need, even to admit saying that, hey, my wife or I as a mom, I'm going through depression. It it is seen saying that I am not capable of taking care of my child. I am incapable of managing this life's milestone. So the family and friends think that they could be interfering. At one point of time, it was different where people would come in with freshly cooked food and fruits and other things to support the child. Now there could be baby showers where you're getting a lot of gifts, but then it's tata bye bye. Then it's people going back to their lives. You don't have the necessary, even your neighbors, if there is a new child in the house, I think in apartment complexes, I've heard of people going to other neighbors saying that it could get noisy here, just like if you have a dog with you who could be a bit noisy and you apologize for that. You have the young mums and dads going out to their neighbors and saying, we've got a screaming child in the house all the time, please don't mind that, versus people going and saying, do you need a hand? That's the situation where we are at right now.
Hmm.
It strains the relationship between the external parties, I would call it. Even the
Hmm.
nuclear bonds are questioned. The
Hmm.
mom and the dad themselves face a strained relationship because the mom's at her weakest and the father hasn't a clue how to help beyond what he can do if he is able to help. If the father is working most of the time and if the mother is taking care of the child from morning to evening, honestly speaking, by the time that the father gets there, there's still work in the house to be done, and the communication time is very little. The child is handed to the father. If he gets great to do well with his diaper duties and his feeding duties, that's already great. But if the
Hmm.
mom doesn't have that support either, then it's I'm really sorry for the mom. That is going to be a really tough time.
Hmm.
So they need to talk to each other. Do they? Do they not? The whole day, what she went through and how she can be supported. If she's in a condition to explain that, communicate that to her partner, they will get out of this situation fairly quickly and easily. But if not, it builds up. It builds
Hmm.
up to saying that I have been doing all of this the whole day for the child. You come in and then you want to have your own me time, or all you do is feed or diaper for an hour or two. What would you understand? There's a lot of internal dialogue that goes on in the woman's mind, and that just negatively contributes to building up the tension, the stress. The mom's bodies are weak. Their sexual relationships suffer for a long period of time. This is the time when statistics say that there's a lot of marital disparities going on. There's even divorces that happen during the time of just after giving birth, women give birth. There is a lack of communication between the partners. The father might well be trying to explain and understand, but the mom and the wife might be unable to explain her situation and they just grow apart. So it's a very real situation that's going on. I
Hmm.
probably don't need to get into the situation of how much the divorce scene has
Mm-hmm.
gone
Mm-hmm.
down the drain. But this is a contributing factor in that time.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. That's very understandable. And communication in general, even without the perinatal depression, is an issue in so many couples. Add to that the pressure of everything going on, plus the baby, plus the sleep deprivation, plus the stress of
Exactly.
everything being new. Of am I taking good care of the baby? Is it
Yeah.
fed? Is it going to be
Is it
okay?
fair?
Don't drop it, don't drop it. Very have to be careful
Yeah.
with everything.
Yeah.
And you talked a bit about the resentment that is that can build up from not having that clear communication, from not, there's little thoughts of, "Oh, I should have done that, I should have done, and there's little things, there's day-to-day things that build up, right,
Well said.
into something. Obviously communication comes from both sides, but what is something that both mothers that feel they have perinatal depression and fathers that want to be supportive, um, do you have any suggestion how they can go about either initiating that communication, or
Hmm.
having, or just having a system where they can talk on a day-to-day basis about what how he can support her.
That's a great question because it's the first step in trying to get out of perinatal depression. The open communication between the mom and the dad. The mom could start journaling. She could start writing down and sharing this with her partner, that this is what I am going through. Because, like I said, at the time that a mom and dad usually meet up at the end of the day, they don't have that much bandwidth between each other to share. This is all I went through the day. This is all the challenges that I went through the day. This is how I felt. This is what I faced the most problematic trying to take care of my child. Could you help me with this? She could journal those thoughts, she could journal those feelings. And if she is open to sharing that with her partner, the minute you write something down, it becomes a little easier to repeat that to your partner at the end of the day. And the father could read up a lot more on what is his partner going through, what are the symptoms that she is expressing. There are wonderful books that I could share links with you later,
Hmm.
which give some of these information about these are the symptoms. There is also something known as postnatal depletion, which is a condition where you feel all those emotions, but it is not a medical disorder like perinatal depression is. Maybe and that depletion goes on for much longer than perinatal depression itself. So, what is it that my partner is facing exactly? If she's expressing these kinds of symptoms, then perhaps she does have a condition which needs help, which needs support. Both of them could get therapy or counseling. They could talk to each other. If I can talk and tell someone what problems I'm going through, and then they can suggest you could have couples therapy, or you could get some help with the child, and the mother can spend some me time. The father can take some time off, especially during Saturdays and Sundays. Take the time with the child, spend longer time, and let the mom go and refresh. Go to a
Hmm.
spa or go and get a massage. Just spend some me time. That's like getting her a boost, a recharge. She would come back feeling a lot more refreshed, a lot more
Hmm.
ready to face what the baby can eventually go ahead and be her best
Hmm.
version of a mother and a wife. And then there are also things like a support group, both online as well as in real life. So if there are support groups available to you where you can spend some mom dad with baby time, there could be a
Hmm.
creche where you can hand the child over and you could spend some quality time between yourselves. That could also mean a revival for that relationship.
Hmm.
Especially if you're just, it is definitely not easy to do any of this on a regular basis, but you need to jot that time down in the calendar saying that we used to have date nights before. We used to spend time with each other before. Now, even if it is with the baby, then we're spending more time outdoors than we are cooped up indoors all the time, especially over weekends. If
Hmm.
the child is a little old enough for you to do activities with them outdoors, being or you take care of the father takes care of the child where the mom spends some time outdoors. You talk to the mom and say, I've been dad. I'm trying to be a new dad and being my best dad, but I need to go and play golf with my dad friends for a little bit of time, with my other guy friends. Have that open conversation. Get your me time. Or we cannot lose our identity as a man and a woman and whatever we were before the child.
Mhm.
And then we can then come back and spend quality time with the child. The child benefits from us taking that time versus you feeling guilty that how can I take this time away
Mhm.
from my little one who needs me. That's not the way you
Mhm.
need to approach that matter. Indeed, need to take time out of your calendar to do all these activities. Journal, build a routine, manage it
Mhm.
as if you're doing a project. I'll handle this part
Yeah.
of the task, you handle this part of the task, and then you're a
Mhm.
team. You're doing
Mhm.
a tag team effort there, and that could make a difference.
Mhm. Yeah, have a good organizational structure
Yeah.
in your house, which is far easier said than done, but it is
Yeah.
definitely worth working on it. Um, yeah, it's one of those things that I feel a lot of people when they have children, especially when they're younger and they have children, they
Mm-hmm.
they don't realize what a change of dynamic that will be. Like suddenly the father has to take care of the mother's needs far more, and because the mother will be spending more time with the baby, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a whole sometimes the father gets jealous because the baby gets all the attention, and
True.
out of that in that makes the any depression, it can be a recipe for
Yeah.
discontent,
After.
to say the least. um,
Yeah.
and you talked earlier about community, and
Mhm.
maybe a weird question, but how can people find community? Because I'm just thinking of in places like in I'm in Europe, in Europe or in the US, like the West or in Australia, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people are still in that little bubble of theirs and don't have a community. So how and a lot of people, honestly, I think nowadays don't know how to find a community. So, is there any tips or recommendations you
You
can give
bring
on
up you,
how people can find a community?
you bring up a very important point. They can follow the same steps that some of the other cultures follow. We do have online communities. That's a good place to meet up and then gel with people and then meet up with them in real life.
Hmm.
But it's also important for you to build your community. They say that your friends are your family that you choose.
Hmm.
So make them part of your child's life. In our culture, on the 40th day of the child's after the child's birth, we do a naming ceremony of the baby and then we invite everybody. So our weddings are not 20, 30, 100 people affair, it's a 1,000 people affair for this very
Yeah.
reason. They're part
Yeah.
of the wedding, they're part of the naming ceremony, they're part of the birthday,
Hmm.
they're part of every milestone. Even when the child starts to write its first letter, we do a ceremony where you put the rice on a plate and then the you take the child's finger and then you write the letter Om on it, and that's the beginning of its literacy life. And then you
Interesting.
invite friends for those events. These are
Hmm.
all times when you build your community. And then you can always reach out to them and say, come and be part of me and my child's life. It's not that I've had a child and that means that I'm not no longer your friend or can I probably cannot be as actively involved in your lives as we were before. We probably can't go out for drinks at 10 or 11 in the night and hang out till the next day early morning. But I would
Hmm.
still love to have you as part of my life. Go introduce the baby or invite your neighbors to your home. Let them know that it's that's I'm saying something which is not so easy. We don't have a culture where we just go up to our neighbors for milk or sugar or anything like that anymore. But I don't think it's a bad idea to let them know that you have a new family member. He or she might be noisy. They might be disturbed by his or her presence, but that you would be privileged to have them as part of their lives, cook something or get something and then have a little event for them so that they are introduced, and more often than not that is what they are looking for as well. Who doesn't love a little baby? Especially in my culture, people would love, they wait for the mom to recover to an extent that they can go and visit the baby, and they would be happy to hold the little baby, and I would say, okay, please hold the child for a little while and I will go to sleep for an hour or so. because I know that the child is safe and my partner is still talking to my neighbor and looking after the baby for an hour, and an hour's power nap could mean the world of difference. The rest of the day would go really easily. So
Hmm.
it's the effort from the mom and the dad side to build that village for that little baby to grow up safely in. So it has long term wonderful repercussions as well. Long term, the child knows this neighbor and that neighbor, and if they have children of different ages, your child is growing up with that. So the baby steps needs to be taken by the mom and the dad to build that community around them, their neighbors, their friends. Make events where they can come and participate in your life. If you have a birthday, invite your friends over and just say, can we spend some time at home with my baby running around here and there, or in the creche lying and crying? But I still would like to have you around and spend my birthday at home or somewhere else. So just use every opportunity possible to invite people into your homes.
Hmm.
It could be messy. You probably didn't clean it the whole week, but get somebody to clean it at that stage.
Yeah,
Just get people over and build that community.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
that's
No,
that's what I would
that's a
suggest.
very good point. I think from my point of view, from my reasoning, I presume a lot of people, because they knew it was easier in the past because you had it was kind of built in the structure of society that you had your neighbors, you had that community, and I think a lot of people haven't made that switch yet into I have to, well, it's not there anymore, so I have to proactively go and
Oh
find
yes.
that community. And and if you do have friends, if you mentioned meeting them for drinks or gonna, and if you have friends that are single and go out for drinks a lot, maybe find different friends, um, apart from them as well, to find more family-based community. So it's that's a very interesting point that you mentioned there. And
Look at it
you,
this way, Mark.
yeah.
You're probably giving an opportunity to all your single men to become the most eligible bachelor out there by giving them some baby training in the advance. They could actually put that
Yeah,
on
yeah,
their
yeah.
Hinge and other
Hmm.
profiles. Good with babies.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's a very good point. And you, of course, work with women with perinatal depression. What are what are some um, hints and or tips you can give women that feel they might have that, or women or fathers that are listening to this whose wives are pregnant or just have just given birth? What hints and tips can you give them?
The biggest tip that I would say is look at it as a routine that you need to set up, a structure that you need to build around your lives. From morning till night, plan to have that structure in place. Things will go out of that system that you have had in mind, and that's a okay. But build a structure which says, I wake up at this time, a little before the child and the rest of the house gets up, and do some things in preparation for the rest of my day, especially giving myself some time. I do some meditation or I do some exercise and I have my cup of coffee. I read one page from a book that will inspire me or keep me just a little boosted up. Just feels like my old life for a little bit of time. That could be one thing
Hmm.
that you could start off with. When the child's taking a nap, I could either try to sleep at the same time or see what else I have in mind to do. So if you have a plan in place, you're already one step ahead. And the kind of food that you give yourself, the kind of nutrition that you're taking into your bodies, start meal prepping or getting foods delivered to your house that will help your body heal and recover more quickly. And understand perinatal depression itself so that you can understand that I am exhibiting those symptoms or my wife is suddenly not the woman that she used to be. There is something going on there, and seek that necessary support. Talk to
Hmm.
people, talk to the necessary people who have that expertise, who could say and save you a lot of trouble and give you a shortcut of getting out of it. Talk to them and say that this is the condition that I am in, this is my unique circumstance. I had a cesarean section, my body is at its weakest, or I had a normal delivery and I can get back to work in 3 months' time. Talk to people at your workplace. A lot of workplaces now offer flexible work customs where you can work at home for a little bit of time.
Hmm.
I look at it two ways. I do have a full time job where I am a cybersecurity expert, but at that job, I feel like it's a relief for me to go there on Monday to Friday because it's far easier than the job that I have as a mom
Yeah.
the rest of the time. So I'm
Hmm.
sure moms would love to get back to their job at the earliest, but
Hmm.
let use the opportunity to talk to your employer and say that I have a young child at home. Can I stay with the child for a longer period of time, or can I work from home for a longer period of time? If you have a partner and you don't have the monetary necessity to go back to work and you don't want to, don't force yourself.
Hmm.
There will be jobs all the time, there will be other jobs, but your family life, your husband, your partner, your child, they are irreplaceable. You may have heard the analogy of the glass balls and the rubber balls. So, your family and your health are glass balls. When you're juggling in the game of life, don't drop those glass balls. Your job is a rubber ball, it will bounce back, right? So, look at it in that perspective and always focus on your family life as much as you can, and you will come out of it through open communication with your partner. Talk it
Hmm.
out as much as you can. Have that in the morning routine when I mentioned. You could
Hmm.
journal and say what went well the previous day, what you would like to continue, and what you definitely need to stop. And what needs to stop, you need to communicate with your partner. It could be something that he's doing or she's doing, and you need to get help with. These are little things like this that the partner, that the two, the parents can do. And then just it's all right. It's all you're the best mom and dad that you are for your child. Don't have an ideal image of I need to be this, then I'm a good mom. That's not the case. Don't have that ideal picture saying that if I am this, if I am not sad, if I'm happy all the time, I have a wonderful child who doesn't cry, who's healthy, who's chubby, who's growing well, and doesn't have any other challenges, then I'm a perfect mom. No, you're doing your best for your child knows it. Your partner needs to keep saying that and re emphasizing that. These are a few things that you can do to emphasize and try and address perinatal depression.
Hmm. Thank you very much. Yeah, I think that they're all very very valid points, and I like what you said about the glass balls and the rubber balls. Um, and it's maybe part of a larger discussion of the generalized stress of people, and especially if you watch the
Yeah,
news, there's a lot of negativity around. So maybe that's, if you are in that situation and you are already stressed with everything going on, if you have a newborn, then it's good to minimize any stress you might have. Good.
well said.
You work with perinatal multiple perinatal depression using yoga and Ayurveda. Is that correct?
That's right.
So
Because
how
you
can these yeah how can these modalities, how do you work with these modalities and this condition?
that's a question that is very close to my heart and soul. When I faced perinatal depression myself, which is 5 years ago, I was given the necessary support. But for me to quickly get out of perinatal depression and not have that last for years and years, what helped me was yoga. And what helped me were Ayurvedic medicines. Yoga is a 5,000-year-old science. Yoga and Ayurveda are ancient, and these systems have existed in India for as long as we have had humanity around. So, what has happened is these two modalities provide to you a structured mechanism for you to live your life, not just get out of perinatal depression. Yoga says if you have certain bodily conditions, then you can overcome them through the certain postures and lifestyles that it recommends. And Ayurveda, which translates to the science of life, says from morning to night you need a routine. To the seasons of the year has different seasons, and your own body reacts in different ways to those seasons. Your body is also different. There are seven different types defined in Ayurveda, which is Vata, Pitta, Kapha, and combination of Vata, Pitta, Kapha. What Vata, Pitta, Kapha pretty much, if I was to take an example for you, is somebody who is lean and somebody who has a bony body structure would be required to eat differently from somebody who is well built, who is bigger of nature, who reacts differently to cold weather, who reacts differently to hot weather. Some people like cold weather, some people dislike cold weather. That is because they have different personalities, and Ayurveda helps you define yourself. There is a test that we run with every one of the all the women or even men that I work with, because I work with depression in general when I get the time. So we first let them define what is their body constitution or what's known as prakriti, and then we understand, okay, so this is your body constitution, this is your mind's framework, which means that you are predestined or preordained to like certain things and react to certain things in a certain way. People are ambitious, people are laid back, people are jealous, people are open and giving. So there are different types of people. It's not a one size fits all situation, which is the mistake with the modern medical world, where you see the symptoms and you provide the medication, but the person that you provide the medication to is different from the second person, the third person, or the seventh person. That's the reason why people have to go back and forth between medications as much as they have to, is my view of looking at things. So
Hmm.
through Ayurveda, we understand the person through conversations with them. Here, I do use modern medical systems of Beck depression symptoms. We check what their level of depression is, because there are 7, 8 different types of depression that you could be facing. If you've had depression before, it could not just be the perinatal depression, but the previous depression, depressive disorder that is resurfacing through your perinatal period. So we analyze that, and then we work with them through the yoga systems. What does that do? Certain yoga postures help you with certain symptoms. For example, I have gotten depressed and I need to be a lot more outgoing and courageous and confident. There is a set of yoga postures for that. My body and my mind are at its weakest. So, what do I need to do to overcome that? I'm not able to concentrate. There are a certain set of meditations that I can provide people with that would help them to concentrate, to focus. Then there are certain types of breath work that we can do. If there's nothing that your body can quickly do, it can do breath work. So that's known as pranayama. So pranayama helps people to improve their inner systems, their mind frame, concentrate. Meditation is not for everybody, but it should be. Meditation and pranayama, the combination along with, if I were to tell you more about yoga, what yoga says is your aim is to sit and meditate and get yourself connected to the universe, to the larger picture out there. But for you to meditate, your body is like a monkey. Your body and your mind is like a monkey which is restless. For that, you need to do those yoga postures, get your body fit enough to meditate. So that's pretty much what is said in yoga. And that's how I started my journey with yoga. Did about 3 teachers training courses, did a diploma in yoga, learned so much that now I strongly believe that this is a system that could help people with a lot of symptoms, perinatal depression being one of them.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, very comprehensive explanation. Thank you very much. And how would you go, so to go a bit deeper into that, how would you go and work, if somebody came to you, how would you work with them? Is it a one-on-one session? Is it, do you have like intake sessions and go, to find out what type they are, Ayurvedic type? I know that's probably not the right name, but what type they are, and then make a program for them. How does that work?
Yeah. Answering the
Okay.
question,
Hmm.
you're right. I would work with people one on one so that I can understand them a lot more, so that we can customize their care plan for them. We would understand their prakriti, their constitution, and then we would define the steps that they need to follow on a daily basis according to what we understand is their situation. I cannot tell everybody to follow the same set of steps because that might not work for them. So we would work with them around their existing life and see if we can get them to do yoga sessions with many of the teachers that I'm associated with. If they could take certain supplements to nourish their bodies, which is based on Ayurveda, and can they follow certain routines that we can set up for them known as dinacharya or a daily routine? which is from the morning till the night, the different things that they could do over and above how they are going about their lives at the current situation. So, these are some of the steps that we take and see if it works for them. I would be working with them on a weekly basis. I would be tying up. I personally believe that if you're new to yoga and you don't know how to do yoga, it's best that you go to those classes. So, in the initial stages, we tie up with different yoga classes around the world. We would do those classes, and after that, I can take some of the classes online. I've created some modules for prenatal and postnatal yoga sessions. I've created a course around perinatal depression, and they can understand their situation, understand more about their symptoms and recovery, the different kind of foods that they can have, because food is medicine. Food can be used as medicine. Those are all, where there would be different recipes and meal plans that I would customize and share with the people that I work with. Yeah, those are some of the
Yeah,
ways.
that's brilliant. And so, do you work online, or is it quite localized in Melbourne?
Right now, I'm working online because a lot
Okay.
of people that I'm working with, some of them are in US, some of them are
Hmm.
in Europe, and a lot of them are in India. So I'm working with them
Hmm.
mostly online. But I do have
Hmm.
my teachers in India who do the classes, so I tie them up with them
Hmm.
as well as
Okay,
Melbourne.
very good. And where can people find you?
People can find me on Facebook. I'll share my link. They can go to my website, theoxymoronicyogi.com. On Facebook, find me Asha Putran, and I would be happy to connect with anybody facing this situation. And I'm sure that they would be able to get out of it if they are willing to make that effort.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think you're doing amazing work, and it's sorely needed for the women, especially for the women, and for the men. There needs to be a lot more talk about this and education, just awareness of the situation, what everyone is going through. So thank you,
Yeah.
uh, thank you very very much.